welcome to another episode of Showboys. My name is Mike, and I'm joined with my fellow hosts and good friends, Nick and Chad. How are you guys doing tonight?
Great.
Good talk.
Yeah,
Good talk.
doing great.
Great. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's a good intro.
Yeah.
Joe
you
says,
always jam us up by
know.
asking both of us at the same time.
I do it on purpose now.
Mike, how are you?
I'm doing all right.
Doing okay?
All right. Joe says, "Don't be scared."
Scared.
I did get a little scared on our Patreon episode, but not gonna be scared tonight.
Yeah, Jordan's got some spooky stories. He had me a little spooked.
Yeah, and then Jeff's Home Alone in it over there. Yeah, we have a fun episode for you guys tonight. This is our second to last, the penultimate Spooktober episode. Yeah, I don't have any more adjectives for the second to last episode. We're gonna we're going to branch into the gaming side of Spooktober, so that's gonna be fun. We also have a movie review to get out of the way to knock out here at the top of the episode. But before we do anything else, we got to shout out our top tier patrons, Tim B, Yusuf H, and Joe C. Thank you guys so much for your indefinite support. We appreciate it. All of our other patrons, thank you guys so much. Like I said, we just recorded our Patreon exclusive. What was it? Tuesday? It wasn't Monday. Must have been Tuesday. It was fun. It was spooky. We told some scary stories. We had Civ and Jordan on, and yeah, great campfire in the background, including the sound effects. It was amazing. If you're wondering what the heck I'm talking about, you can go to patreon.com/showboyspodcast. Check it out. It's just a way for you to sign up and do monthly donations to the podcast to help support us. And each tier, there's 4 different tiers, all different price points. They'll come with their own perks and benefits. So go check them out, see if anything interests you, and if you feel so led, sign up and support Showboys. That would be amazing. If you're not able to do that, we're just glad you're here. Just subscribe to the channel here. That out of the way, what are you guys up to? How's your Thursday been, Chad?
It's been a Thursday, but I am very excited because Persona 5 comes out for Steam tomorrow, and it's as if I haven't already probably put 150 hours in this game total. I've never beat it.
Yes.
So I'm very like a child on Christmas morning, waiting for midnight to get here so I can buy it and download it.
Awesome. Dravira, he says good vibes. Back at you.
Vibes.
Thanks for the comment. Thanks for hanging out. Nick, how's your Thursday been?
My Thursday's been good. It's been really good. I played a video game today.
What?
What? I figured that was appropriate for what's playing to play a video game on this historic moment and day. Was it a scary one? For my enemies, yes. When Vegeta rolls up and just like punches you in the face, you should be scared. So a little bit of DBZ Kakarot.
Nice.
Can't go wrong there.
Yeah, I keep seeing that on sale on the various like gaming deal websites I browse. And every time I'm like, Chad and Nick, these guys got to play this game. And Nick's already playing it. So,
yeah,
Chad, you got to play this game.
What is it?
Dragon Ball Z Kakarot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do need to. It's been on sale multiple times in the past couple of months.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Pick it up. Especially if you haven't seen DBZ, it's a good just like light recap of the story. It kind of like moves through pretty quickly. It's not the best like retelling of the story, but it hits the better points, and it actually makes me just want to watch Dragon Ball Z while I play it, which I might start doing here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Never got into Dragon
DBZ
Ball.
Bender. Oh yeah,
and
man,
I feel like there's just so much now that I don't even know.
That's how I feel. Yeah, that's how I feel. Like I know that I'd be. I know that I'd be super into it probably, but there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot to bite into.
Play the game. It'll give you the good. The cool thing,
that's
like,
what I hear.
yeah, DBZ Kakarot. The cool thing is like it just like it acknowledges Dragon Ball, which is like the first anime. It just references like little like things you pick up around the world, and it tells you about like a thing that happened in Dragon Ball at that spot in the world. Because Dragon Ball is like more kidsy, and you can really kind of glaze over that. You just really have to watch Dragon Ball Z and then Super after that, and you're good. It's easy. We'll do a whole companion series on it.
There you go. Oh god, that'll be like year long.
Yeah.
Speaking of, got one more episode of House of the Dragon, huh? Next Monday, wrapping up that companion series live here on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. So make sure you guys tune into that. I've been like lagging behind and watching the show, so my consuming of the companion series likewise has been lagging behind, but the episodes that I've caught of the companion series have been really, really good. Help me understand what's going on with the 7,000 time jumps and all that fun stuff, and all the people who have the same name that start with the letter R, basically, with like just like one letter difference.
Right.
But no, it's been a great show. You guys doing a good job with the companion series. So make sure you guys tune in to the finale next week on Monday. Yeah, we're gonna start off the episode reviewing a horror movie we watched this week, Fear Street, Volume
Fear
1,
Street.
1994. So did either of you guys watch this when it came out originally?
Yes.
Yeah?
No.
Me either, Nick.
When we picked Fear Street, and Chad's like, "Oh yeah, I love Fear Street," and like even Joe was like, "Oh yeah, I love Fear Street." I'm like, even with the name, I was like, this definitely came out a long time ago, and I was very shocked to realize that like it's a 3-part trilogy, all on Netflix as of last year. So I don't know how I missed it.
I feel personally attacked by this comment from Joe. At my complaint about all the names being the same in House of the Dragon, he says, coming from someone who has one of the most common names in the world. You know what?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
he's
didn't
also
choose my
referencing
name,
himself.
sir. That's true. It's true.
And Chad and me.
Yeah, Fear Street. I think, did they all release at once, or was it like a kind of like
Very
a
close.
rapid?
Yeah, it was very close.
succession?
It was like weekly releases, I believe.
It was a week. The first one was July 2nd. Second one was July 9th. And part 3 was July 16th. So,
interesting. I thought it was around Halloween time.
That would make sense.
I mean, that would make sense, but why would Netflix do anything that makes sense? So.
Also valid, yeah.
But yeah, another thing that is pretty interesting about this trilogy, we had reported on it in the newscast, rip the newscast, but yeah, back when we were doing the newscast, we reported that the director of Fear Street wanted to, well, I shouldn't say wanted to, maybe still wants to. I think they're approaching this as like a quote unquote MCU style franchise. So
they need to stop saying that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we did just
we talked about that already. Yeah.
But here's a quote from the director, Lee Janiak.
Yeah, I think it's a girl.
I'll go with that. One of the exciting things about Fear Street is the fact that the universe is big and allows for a lot of space. One of the things that I talked about before I was hired was that we have a potential here to create a horror Marvel, in parentheses, cinematic universe, where you can have slasher killers from lots of different eras. You have the canon of our main mythology that's built around the fact that the devil lives in Shadyside. So there's also room for everything else. And trilogy is based off of an R.L. Stine series, also called Fear Street. And yeah, like we said, there's 3 movies out right now on Netflix. They all came out last year. But general thoughts. The Fear Street verse. General thoughts, Nick. What was your first impression?
Why do I always go first?
Because you're up there with them.
Yeah.
We can change that. My general thoughts is I thought it was something that came out in the 80s. Luckily, I like that it could have came out in the 80s. Like they did definitely, I think, capture that like old slasher, like 2000s, 90s slasher vibe. Makes sense that it's set in 1994. So I think that's cool. I liked it. It was definitely good. Wasn't too much. Like the story's pretty straightforward. It's not any more complicated than it needs to be. And there's not like too many for it being like kind of like a dumb like slasher bit. Like there's not really too many like ridiculous moments, but it's got to have them for sure.
Yeah.
So no, I liked it. And they did the whole. I did enjoy the two like town things with like very blatant like happy nice place name and then just like shitty whole place name.
Sunnyvale and Shady Side.
Shady Side, yeah. And then like one's just like a shithole school and the other one's like preppy and nice and rich. So
yeah,
I thought that was a funny like world building element that didn't need to be there, but it was, and it added to it.
Yeah. What about you, Chad?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed this the first time that I watched it. A lot actually when I watched it back in July when it released, but I don't know if it's maybe just not like the kind of movie that I want to watch twice in a row or what it is, but I found myself liking it a little bit less this time around. I still enjoyed it. I still think it has very very thought out kills in it, and I am a huge Scream fan, so I like that it pays a lot of homage to Scream, the original Scream. And this one probably is my second favorite, maybe out of all three of them. When I first watched it, though, it was probably up there because I feel more of an emotional tie to the movie that it was paying homage to versus the other ones, which I don't have that emotional tie to. But yeah, as a whole, I thought it was it's good. It's good.
Yeah, and I think it is just like a massive like tribute to slasher movies of like the 90s, obviously 1994, right? But like the Screams, etc. And I think they like leaned into it, right? Like brought the camp of those slasher movies, like played on all of the stereotypes and like didn't really try to, pull any punches or subvert any expectations. The movie did exactly what I thought it was going to do, and it did it really well, and it was really fun and entertaining. I think that's how I'd describe it. It's a fun movie.
Yeah.
I watched a movie, maybe it was last week, during work, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter or whatever. It's another one of those movies where it's like, yeah, it doesn't do anything special. It does kind of what I thought it was going to do. But it was just a fun movie. It's ridiculous.
It sounds ridiculous. Yeah.
I didn't watch Abraham when it first came out because I was like, this is the dumbest sounding thing I've ever heard of in my life. But it's pretty much like watching a comic book. It's really good. I highly recommend it.
Really?
If you're looking for just like a fun out there movie, like watch.
Is it live action or animated?
Yeah, no, it's live action. It's on Prime right now for free. So if you got Prime, check it out.
They should make an Abe Lincoln Demon Slayer.
Yeah.
He's too busy slaying vampires, bro.
He needs to branch out.
They got a decent cast here. The big name that kind of sticks out, if you're familiar with Netflix stuff, is Maya Hawke, coming from Stranger Things. And then Volume 2 has Sadie Sink in it, who also from Stranger Things. So
yeah. Also Netflix. Like it's just
a Netflix
very lateral move.
They probably scoop these actors up have them sign deals where they have to, here's like a 5-movie deal
Yeah.
or whatever.
5-movie pack.
Yeah, 6.2 out of 10 on IMDb. Average. It's okay. It's seeable. What did you guys think of like the larger story here of, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie, we'll talk about story stuff here, but the larger story of the witch, was it Sarah Fryer, something like that.
Fryer, yeah.
This witch who was killed in Shadyside cursed the town and now is able to like possess people who go on these like murder sprees almost every decade. Maybe maybe skip a decade or two here or there, but they talk about 3 for sure in the movie. They might have mentioned a couple others that didn't become one of the killers that chased the group. But the witch, the dead witch, she possesses somebody. They go on a killing spree. Eventually, they're killed. What happens? One of the main characters, or the main character's girlfriend, she like disrupts, unsettles the grave of Sarah, or the witch. I think her name's Sarah. Anyways, disrupts the grave of the witch, and like the curse is like placed on her because she gets like some of her blood ingests some of the witch's blood somehow. I don't know how, because the witch has been dead for 300 years. Somehow there's still blood there.
Blood dust.
But what happens now that the curse is on this character, the killers from the past like resurrect and chase after this person, and the only way that they can break the curse is for the cursed girl to die, pretty much.
Wow.
Hey. Good night. Love you.
Wow.
What do you guys think about that? Like just the main plot there, like, meh, okay.
Did all the
Got anything
killers
for you?
like stumble across the witch's bones, or that's just how that happened to her? That's the part I didn't really understand.
Yeah, that will be answered in subsequent movies.
Okay.
So
We'll save that.
I won't spoil that for you.
All we know about that from this movie is one person see something or other. I wish I remembered the names. One person had this curse on them before, died somehow, but was resuscitated a couple minutes later, and that like allegedly broke the curse, or that's what they figured out. But at the end of the movie, you learn that that's not actually what happens. So, yeah, I'd say like it's a pretty interesting idea for a story.
Which
I
is
like
OP.
how they. What are you gonna say?
The witch is OP.
Yeah, no kidding. I like how they allude to all these different things, especially knowing that there was 3 parts and the decades that these 3 movies or the other 2 movies take place in, how they like heavily referenced those eras in world, right? Which is pretty neat.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think the witch thing is where it kind of falls apart for me a little bit, just because I mean, I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to pay homage to Scream and then do their own story. And I appreciate that. And I do like witch stuff. Like one of my favorite horror movies, Blair Witch. I love witch stuff. It's just sometimes like with a slasher film, I don't necessarily want that
backstory
side of it. Yeah, I don't want that side. I just want like a psychopath that's just murdering people, not because a witch is making them do it. So I don't know. I think altogether, the way the story is told, I think it comes together a lot better. But in this first iteration of Fear Street, I think that I could have probably done without the witch stuff.
Yeah, I think that's fair, because it does kind of distract from just like the pure nature of the slasher elements. to it. Kind of overcomplicates it a little bit. But I like that the main character's brother is this like a mega nerd and has the whole like crazy Charlie like chart where he's like tracking all the murders and all the history, and he's the plug on info. He knew it all.
The scene where you're introduced to him and he's like sitting at the computer in the chat room with the blanket over.
Yeah.
Just classic.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, I liked a lot of the nods to the 90s as well with the music and stuff. I thought they did a great job with all that stuff.
The music's so good.
Yeah.
So many good songs.
And I think really my biggest hang up with this film specifically is I just don't like the main character. I just think she's kind of annoying. I don't know. There are some movies, and Blair Witch is one of them, where I can't stand the female character in that movie. She's like, if you go back and watch that movie now, she is like obsessively annoying throughout the entire movie. Like it's almost painful to go back and watch it. Now in the 90s, did it work probably a lot better? Probably. But now by today's standards, it's just like way over the top. And I always have a hard time going back and watching movies that are like way overacted, like 60s or set, like samurai movies are prime example that are way overacted. And it's just a totally different style of acting. So that's the vibe I get from Blair Witch. But I don't know. I just don't like this main character. She's just very pissy through the entire movie and every single scene that she's in. And
she is really pissy, but they kind of play it up like she's pissy, and that's how it opens. Like she's pissy about like she's breaking up with her girlfriend,
right, and I get that, but it lasts.
But she's like
the
really
whole movie,
yeah, and those parts were kind of like excessive. Like, why did they ever explain like why she was so upset at her?
At Sam?
Yeah.
No, because
because
she moved. That's right.
Yeah,
she moved,
but it's not her fault. Not her fault whatsoever.
You know.
Not her fault. Her parents got a divorce, so she had to move. She literally moved like 20 minutes up the road, and she's acting like they moved to to the next state over.
Just abandoned
or
her, like skip continent. I don't know, and completely excommunicated. It was like okay. But that's also, but I think a part of that was because this rift between these two towns is just so extreme. Like she's not even she's like mad that she even like left to a better place, period.
Plus she's not in the greatest living situation. Like you don't see her parents, like her dad is presumed to be just like a giant waste of space. Like the opening scene, she's for some reason putting beer cans in the sink, which is kind of weird, but like lots of empty beer cans everywhere. Kind of, talk about him being a deadbeat. So she's probably just not in a great headspace anyways, but I get what you're saying. And at times they're just like, okay, can we just stop being angry at everything?
Yeah. It's like a little too edgelordy for me for sure. It's like,
extra
okay,
weird.
We get it. You're very mad about everything and everyone.
Yeah. I loved her brother though.
Yeah. Her brother's great.
Hilarious. Yeah. Like Nick was saying, the Charlie Day, like, detective board of all the, of course he would just have that down there. And
he had all the articles and just was whipping them out when he was explaining it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love how they like leaned into that trope that you get in a lot of horror movies where you're just like the one guy who just knows all the answers,
knows everything
somehow. So of like some super weird, like paranatural event, he's just like, I know exactly what to do here. I would say, I liked, like visually, it just like looked really cool. I liked the 90s vibe. Like Chad said, the music was really cool. I liked the colors when there were colors, like in that opening scene in the mall when they go into basically the like Spencer's of the mall and you have like all the black lights and like neon colors. Love that stuff.
I really like the opening scene just because
it's great.
That's just like pure play slasher, and it even was just the fact that they did the stupid like all the skull masks, and then he's like the last one just steps forward. Like it's just so good. That stuff, when done right, it works really well, even though it's like still kind of extra tropey. But
that's
But I think they did that on purpose. I feel
sure.
Like this, like they just leaned to all those like super hard, and I liked it because it was like I don't know, fun. Like,
Yeah.
and I think they're like self-aware, so it made it like not super eye rolly, you know.
Yeah, that opening scene, there's a lot of homage to the opening scene in the first Scream movie, including the slow-mo stab towards the end of that scene when he actually kills her. It's a direct rip from the first Scream movie, like positioning and everything. So it's a cool way to open it. It's a cool way to show that what we're going to be paying homage to in this specific Fear Street. And I like I said, I feel much more attached to those Scream movies because those were the ones that were out when I was younger and was more into watching movies like that, which I'm not really into that anymore. So I don't know,
watch
it's
different
just
types of
something.
slashers, samurai
Yeah,
sword slashers.
yeah, Scream is just cool
the grown
because
man slasher.
Scream is both a slasher film and a mystery in the same thing. Where if you watch Halloween, you know it's Michael Myers, you know who the killer is. Friday the 13th, same exact thing. You know it's Jason Voorhees. Scream, you don't know the entire movie and you're trying to figure it out. So I think that was a cool way to modernize the slasher film instead of having this big bad guy that can be shot and set on fire and rolled over by a truck and drown and all this stuff and he comes back. It's just random kids that are crazy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you have to figure out who it is through all their movies. All the Scream movies are like that.
Yeah,
I did
Scream
enjoy
is
that.
like the Batman of of slasher movies.
Yeah.
It's just it's a mantle, it's a cowl. Anyone can be the Scream slasher.
Right.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. They like revealed the identity really fast. I didn't expect that. Maybe that was a little bit of a subversion where I was like, oh, like it was that guy.
And they
But
kill
then
him.
that
Like
and they kill him, and then he comes back. So then they explain that away. So that's where I think the backstory of the witch thing kind of worked because they were able to step out of that typical Scream thing where it's like, oh, it's somebody in the town,
Yeah.
or that big brooding like bad guy that's invincible. Kind of a blend between the two because you can shoot them, they don't die. It's also someone they know, so it's deceptive that way to us as the audience. Is like, oh, okay, it was just the guy at the mall, like her friend. That's fixed. He's dead. Where's this going? So, yeah, I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I really like the opening credits too. Honestly,
yes,
like the typical voiceover with all the like news stories and documents and papers and stuff was super cool.
Yeah, I think that it's hard for me because I like I said, I like this a lot more the first time I watched it, but it does still have easily the best slasher movie kill of anything that I've ever seen with the bread slicer. I think it's brilliant, dude. I absolutely loved it. So
I think it was going to happen in the next.
Yeah, honestly, I thought the group was going to make it out.
Yeah, and they just drop like flies in that scene, dude. They're like,
because at that point, like, there's like 20 minutes left of the movie.
Yeah,
I would have expected at least one of like, because typically you start losing characters like maybe every 20 minutes, starting at like a half hour into the movie. The group starts getting picked off slowly here and there. But yeah, they save that for the last like 20-25 minutes, and it all happens within like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, what did you guys think of the slashers that were included, the villains, the monsters, the lady from the 50s? Was it 50s? The guy from the camp with the bag over his head, and then of course we had the guy from the opening. Those were the three main ones that were chasing our group here.
Yeah, I like them, and I like that they're from different like tropes or eras of like that concept, because obviously the opener, that's like more traditionally your Scream guy. You have the bag over your head with the axe, that's more like a Jason. And then I can't really place the one from like I think the 60s, but that one was my favorite because she has like a razor blade for like shaving, and she has that kind of like 60s like London like counterculture chick going vibe where she's just like posting, and she just whips out the blade and just like, it reminded me of Clockwork Orange, honestly, a little bit, in terms of like the way she moved and the way she kind of was presented on screen. She was my favorite, especially how they intro her was also one of my favorite scenes too. That poor
just
guy,
like
that
sitting
guy
on the sidewalk.
dude, that guy, my favorite part, and Chad, you can answer that after this, but when they all have their like intimate moments on screen, he's like he's like, did you all just me too? And
I enjoy them. I think they get a little bit more or at least one of them gets much more context in subsequent films. And there's definitely creepier ones too that we'll see later on that I think we might have actually got a glimpse of. Did you guys watch the trailer for the second movie at the end of this one? It's like right before the credits, maybe.
Yeah.
Yep.
The camp one. Yeah. So you got a shot of it in there. It's the little kid. He absolutely horrifies me.
Well, yeah, that's what I really liked in the beginning with the brothers. Like he says, like
all of them.
5 or 6 or maybe 7 killers that had this like possessed by the witch or whatever.
Yeah.
And like the kid and like the milkman with like the weird face or mask or whatever, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah, the kid's so creepy, man. And the way they present him is so creepy too. He's just bashing the baseball bat over the it's just super creepy. But yeah, the ones in this movie I like for what we got of them. We don't get that much of them as far as context, where outside of their time, like we get a little bit with the stories that they tell. But you'll get more on the camp one, and I enjoyed it. But like I said, like I don't know, the supernatural thing just kind of gets a little lame at the end. You know what I mean? For me personally.
So did you like 1666 the most?
No, I liked the middle one, whatever that is.
1984.
Yeah, 84.
The camp.
1666 is really, really, really good as well. It's harder for me to tie what they were inspired by on that one. I don't know, The Witch maybe. I've never seen The Witch. Maybe that's the vibe. But yeah, that one's really good. It's got they really all have totally different feels to them.
That's good.
But yeah, definitely the second one is my favorite.
That's like I feel like the general consensus with people I've talked to about the trilogy. A lot of people really, really like the second one. And it looks cool. I'll probably finish off the trilogy. And I can see where like they can branch out, right? I mean, we only got the origin story of the witch in 1666. The bagged axe dude from the summer camp and 1994, and there's like 5 or 6 other killers mentioned in 1994 alone. You could just do their movies. I mean,
yeah.
And since they've kind of done the overarching plot line here with the possession from the witch and all that stuff, like you can easily tie them together through that. It's pretty fun movie. I'm glad that we watched it, and I do want to know towards the end, the sheriff goes to Dina's house, I believe, and like slips a note under the door or in the mail slot or whatever, and it says like it's happening again, and then like never spoken about again.
That's because you'll get context on that in the second, pretty early on in the second movie, what that was all about.
All right.
I do want to know, did you guys ever read these books when you were kids? These are R.L. Stine books.
Never
read
them,
I never did either. I'm kind of bummed. I'm sure they're not.
Don't read books here.
Yeah, valid.
Do they have pictures?
Yeah.
Do they have pictures?
Yeah, I just think that this was like the more teenage books that he wrote, I guess, would be the best way. They had Goosebumps going on. This is the more adult one. So I don't know how graphic the books are actually, because I think they are still like young adult novels, but I don't even remember these from when I was a kid, to be honest with you. And I was all over Goosebumps when I was a kid. So I literally didn't don't remember these at all. So I don't know if they maybe just didn't do very good, or he didn't write that many of them, or what. But
yeah, I too read so many Goosebump books.
yeah, right.
That was my jam for sure. So yeah, any final words on Fear Street? No, go watch it if you haven't yet. It's fun. It'll be a nice fun movie to watch with friends, I would say.
I like that there's more because I want to watch the other ones. So I'm glad it wasn't kind of like a one and done. Um, so it's good that it was both good and there's more to watch after that, which kind of helps keep it going.
Yeah.
Just when it's bad and if there's just one, like I guess that's good. There's just one, but when it's
Yeah.
bad, this is like that's where it's like I'm never getting that time back.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
I'm never gonna be able to improve that time with like a later iteration. Like if there's a sequel that's better. Not that
Yeah.
that happens, but
What do you guys like? How do you feel about
how do you feel?
like a horror franchise of like connected movies in a shared universe? Like not just like sequels of a movie, but like what
I like
they're
the Conjuring
how they
universe.
described it, like an MCU of horror movies. Like
Yeah.
what
I mean,
what does
that's
that
kind of
do
what
for
The
you guys?
Conjuring has got going on, right?
Yep.
That's what they're building basically with The Conjuring. I like the idea. We talked about this on last week's episode with whatever it was, Universal or whatever. I can't remember.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
I agree that there are some things that don't need that would be qualifying as don't need a universe for these, old monsters that nobody cares about. But this I think would be really cool. Because there's probably books to go off of. I think they built a very good foundation with moving this forward. And I also really like, I've never seen any other film franchise that has released this way, where they released it almost like a show, but they were movies.
Yep.
So I thought that was really cool. I can't think anything off the top of my head that did something like that film wise, where they released them week after week for a couple weeks. So I thought that was really, really cool. It's like a kind of blending Netflix's obsession with series and their want to have films as well. So I thought it was kind of cool. It felt like a very Netflix thing to do, right?
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, if they want to do something like that, at least that's a good way to start it. Instead of like release a movie and be like, we have all these grand plans. Like, start off with a bang, release like 3 of them, give people something to chew on, and then do it again. But I mean, I like the like Conjuring universe is like my favorite like scary thing outside of Mike Flanagan's series that he comes out with.
Yeah, I agree.
And the reason I like those and I like that type of horror because it's just scary because it's like it's borderline real, if not real, in some people's opinion. But I like the like meta tie-in that the wider universe gives it because it's like, oh, we're gonna reference the doll and like this is why these things happen, and it all ties to this larger like spooky psychology where it's like you tell us you have a movie like a one-off and it's like okay that happened that's isolated it's not like a rampant problem whereas like the Conjuring is like it's a continuous thing that keeps happening and like that's even more disturbing where it's because like slashers and killers like they come and go unless they're like Jason or Freddy but
Yeah.
that's supernatural then you're stepping into whereas like the Conjuring's like this wider like literal possessions devil all that kind of stuff and like Mike said on last week's episode like that's where it becomes a little bit more real and I think that's where I lean into it a little more because there's that like bigger story that kind of spooks you.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really enjoy the Conjuring movies for what they are. Don't go read about the real stories behind those movies because you'll be very let down by everything that's shown in the movies. And it does they do get a little samey after a while. Like the demon always comes in and turns the crosses upside down. That's never said that was a cult thing back in the 80s that they turned the cross upside down. There's no historical ties to demons turning crosses upside down, but they do it in every single Conjuring movie.
Oh, but it works every time.
But I get the effect. Yeah, I get the effect. But there was like one of them where they had like 30 crosses on the walls. I can't remember. It might have been like the second movie, I think, with the little girls' room, and they had all the crosses. And I'm like, hey, bet you he's gonna come in here and turn all these crosses upside down. And he sure did, So, yeah, I mean, you take it for what it is. They're better watching the movies and assuming that maybe was the way it was versus going and like listening to the actual footage from some of this stuff and reading the actual reports from that couple. But they are, I mean, they're good. They're good horror. They're good modern horror movies.
Yep.
Nice. While you guys were talking, I was trying to figure out how many Fear Street books there are. And I couldn't come up with an exact number, but seems like there were quite a few. The series started in 1989, and he stopped after a series of spin-offs in 1999. So there's 10 years right there of writing these. And then in 2005, he brought it back with a 3-part Fear Street Nights miniseries. So looks like there are quite a few books that they could use as potential material if they wanted to. Yeah, so interesting stuff. Glad to watch that. I will definitely visit the other two at some point.
Is that what we're doing for next week? Just watching the second one?
I mean, we could, but I say we branch out and watch a good one to cap off Spooktober.
It seems like maybe The Invisible Man is maybe the one to go with. It's up to you guys, though.
Yes, we will definitely look into that. If you're listening right now, join our Discord or leave a comment here on the video, live stream or after the fact on YouTube, with suggestions for what movie you would like to hear us review for next week. We may or may not watch it, so keep that in mind. But yeah, so moving on to the topic at hand, Nick, this is one that came from your beautiful mind. So why don't you let the people know what we're going to talk about tonight?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess now, like it being out there in the Discord and having some time to circulate, it's not explicitly kind of, I guess, horror related, but I guess the inspiration is that these are horrific things, but it's really I want to focus on video games that go too far, might go too far, or if they don't go too far, but they definitely have the merits that they have gone too far, whether it's getting banned, redone and censored, just generally a lot of gripe on the internet or even on actual news, right? Like nightly news. Some of these things have actually been covered. That was always a thing back in the 2000s where the big whole violence in video game topic was just running rampant, and all the old people were very scared of us young people playing violent video games. And I famously remember like my dad watching the news, and they were talking about Halo and like the violence in Halo, and I was just like, "What are they talking about?
What on earth?"
I'm like, it's purple, like the blood is purple, and we're killing aliens. There's guns. I don't know. What they're talking about.
That stuff is
maybe a
always
maturity
nuts,
thing.
Man.
Yeah, it was a weird time in the 2000s.
It really was. Yeah, it really was. Once Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, it was like everybody. I mean, there were like politicians talking about it and crap. Like it's a real serious issue that these. And I don't know. I don't know about you guys. Like I think the violent video game thing is complete and utter nonsense. 100%. I played violent video games since I was very young, and I'm like the least violent person you're ever.
You are actually the exact opposite. You are a lifesaver.
Right. So I think that, anytime I hear those arguments, like I just immediately shut it out and think that person is an idiot because they clearly have never played a video game in their life, guaranteed, and also don't know too much about it because you can just hear it. And they always bring up the same games, Grand Theft Auto. Like that's always the go-to for modern times. It used to be Doom, around the 90s. It was Doom that was turning everybody into monsters.
You're slaying demons.
Yeah,
like
right.
That should be applauded.
Exactly. And I am a firm believer that
true.
I was able to let out any sort of like aggressive actions or thoughts I had in video games instead of like beating my neighbor to death or something, you know? So the violent video game thing to me is like so ridiculous. It's very clear if you look at the people that were playing violent video games that actually ended up doing bad shit in real life. They had other shit going on. Like they had far more problems than them playing violent video games and listening to Metallica. Like that was the least of the worries that we should have been looking at in most of these people. So yeah, it just really riles me up anytime I hear people talk about violent video games. It really irritates me. And I think it's primarily because, and we've talked about it on the show before, like Japan is totally opposite on this stuff. Like if you watch an anime that's for a 10-year-old, it's like the bloodiest, most violent thing you'll ever watch in your life. And they've got the lowest amount of violent crimes of any country. And they're consistently on the lowest amount of violent crimes. So
they have a very high suicide rate.
Maybe they do have a very high suicide rate. That's not exactly what we're talking about. But self-violence, yeah. But yeah, I mean, you can look at it. There was an article. There was a like politician that was killed there last year or the year before, and it was like the first shooting in like some ridiculous, like 10 years or something ridiculous. You can't get guns there. The penalty for getting guns in Japan is so outrageous that the Yakuza won't even use guns. They're still using katanas for their weapons. So it's, I mean, like, I think if you look at the evidence, like we should probably be doing whatever Japan is doing if we're worried about violence, because they have it on the lock. And I tell you, their kids' cartoons are very violent. So I assure you, it's not the movies and video games and music that we're listening to.
Yeah, it's an interesting. Correlation that people make there. Yeah, I was looking up the definition of horror, Nick, because it got a little contested in Discord.
Horror games,
here.
You mean? Like what makes a horror game?
Well, literally just the word.
Horror.
Well, yes, that was what was contested, but I'm looking up just the definition of horror. And it's an intense feeling of fear, shock, or disgust. So I think, obviously people tie horror to movies and games and like almost in the supernatural realm of like monsters, like demonic stuff, things like that, to be like classified as like a horror game. But if we use this definition here, I mean, if any game has shocked us with like just grotesque, like gruesome stuff that is just disgusting, like, I mean, I guess that could constitute as a horror game, right? It isn't just like being scared, I think.
Yeah, right.
Which is like the main thing that people tie
right.
horror to. I also love the other definition, which has nothing to do with this, but it's a bad or mischievous person, especially a child.
Love it.
And they used it in the sentence, that little horror Zach was around. But yes. So there
and in the games thing is like a horror game is obviously horror as you defined it, but then typically is intended and designed to scare the player. Though I really kind of remove the whole subjection of how the player feels about it, because I know people who play like the same game and they have very different feelings about what's going on in their mind when they play it. And there's and behind Chad here, faded in the art is Modern Warfare 2. And that one specifically was infamous for the airport scene where are this, you're undercover with the Russians and you're ordered to just murder a bunch of civilians in an airport. Super tasteful. But I know people who played that and they enjoyed it, or it was somewhat thrilling, right? And maybe that was the not the intended design of the game. It's hard to say what the intention of the developers was when putting that in there. But there's other people who like legitimately had issues playing that part of the game. So that's why it's a little subjective to say like a horror game has to scare you, because you can't really control what the player is. Like, obviously there's the intent to scare you, but the intent of that scene wasn't to scare anybody, but it was definitely to put you in a very horrific situation.
Right.
Um,
I mean,
And which a lot of people would consider went too far.
yeah. I mean, I would definitely probably agree that it did go a little too far, and I think it did. I think the No Russian mission got edited out of the
yes.
re-release. I could be wrong on that, but
There's no, I don't think it's playable anymore.
okay, yeah.
That's
I
the
mean,
difference.
I think thematically for the story, it worked really well. I get that maybe it should have just been a cutscene and didn't put you
Right.
in the driver's seat of a vicious terrorist attack on an airport.
Yeah.
But you're also going after these guys that did that, so it gives you a little bit more. I don't know, a little
Okay, you
more
gotta
emotional
break an
ties to
egg
it.
to make an
Right.
omelet, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
maybe
the
not
big
the
thing with
best
that,
analogy for
yeah,
that.
yeah, bunch of eggs, noggins and stuff like that.
Yeeks.
But the issue that, like, I guess fundamentally there is the player doesn't have a choice in that situation, right? And narratively, really, like you said, it could have been a cutscene, but instead they're like, no, we're just gonna make the player do this mandatory like pulling of the trigger to just do this action that is otherwise easily a cutscene. The other NPCs could have done it, right? There's things they could have done to like detach the player from that situation. Otherwise, it's like, hey, just hit the button on the controller and do this thing to get to the next part of the story. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the beautiful things about video games, though, and how they can be super effective in storytelling and narrative
yeah,
is in order to progress the story, that like you have to do something as the character, right?
Yeah.
As the person consuming the story. So you can use spots like that to drive home points, make your commentary there with whatever you're trying to do. And I'm sure that's probably was the goal of that scene,
Yeah.
because warfare is you know disgusting and horrific, and nobody should want to engage in that or go through that. And just showing one of the absolutely horrific sides of warfare and making you have to do that is a very powerful and effective tool in storytelling and getting your point across. However, maybe not a lot of people see it that way and might think that it's a little much and poor taste. But I say, in terms of games or shows or movies or books, any sort of art, I guess, uh, if you're going to go and push those boundaries, like the commentary has to be there. You have to be trying to prove and push a bigger point,
Yes.
instead of just doing that stuff for shock value to get a reaction. Because that's I can't stand that. But if it's used in a way that makes you think, makes you feel certain ways, and yeah, I don't know, it could be very effective.
Yeah, I think it is very effective. The prime example, it's similar to this, but not. I said that it emotionally ties you to trying to take down the bad guys in Modern Warfare 2. That's the goal of it, as I see it. But Sifu does a very similar thing where the opening to Sifu, the tutorial area, you're literally committing the murder that sets Sifu on his revenge path. So it's a very effective way to open up a story where you're going to take this character through the game to get revenge for the pain that he's been dealt, and you're dealing the pain at the beginning of the story yourself. So I think it's very effective in storytelling and video games specifically. But I don't know, it's like nobody, I mean, maybe people do complain about this stuff in movies, but it's like the same thing in my mind. Like nobody complains about terrorist attacks that you see in movies that are just as violent but more realistic. So
Yeah.
I'm like on a never-ending goal to try to get video games to be in the realm of storytelling and entertainment as movies and TV shows. So it really irritates me when we separate the two and they're like, oh, well, this, they did this airport scene over here in the video game, but they also did the hotel scene in Zero Dark 30. A bunch of movies have done really vicious terrorist attacks.
Mhm.
So what's the
Yeah.
difference? Just that you're playing it?
It's
Yeah.
the
You're taking the
passive
action with
versus
the thing in your
actives, yeah.
hand.
Yeah. But does the
It gives you
more
some sort of power, apparently. Like that's what it's feeding into. Because like watching a movie, their stance is like you don't feel empowered by those things, but if the controller's in your hand and you are able to do them, it somehow empowers you.
Yeah, but I think like the rational human brain is turned off by
Correct.
that stuff, that we don't like playing that mission, right? It doesn't say
Right.
we don't, most normal people don't finish that mission and like, I think I'm gonna go do that. That sounds like a fun time. Nobody that I've ever talked to outside of politicians saying that people are like that, nobody that I've ever talked to about No Russian has had that opinion on it. It's
Right.
horrific, it's vicious. We all see it for what it is. So for you to think that that is going to be the light switch in the psychopath's brain is a little absurd, I think, personally.
And if it is, I mean, I guess we gotta have some way to like weed them out, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
you got to come out eventually.
can't deny they're out there, so you got to have something to flip
Yeah.
the switch.
Jordan says, I just opened a Welch's fruit snack and they were all red. So I'm here hoping you guys don't screw me as hard as that bag of fruit snacks.
Red ones are
Now,
good.
is it like cherry or strawberry or watermelon? I mean, red,
Light
you know,
red, dark
be-
red.
could be a curse, could be also a blessing. You never know. Depends on that first bite.
But yeah, I mean that's a good point, Chad, in terms of like the typical like modern day psyche. Now, this is where a lot of that I think is just kind of like just fear mongering, right?
Yes,
With like
yeah.
some agendas, because as a whole, and I always go this route, as a whole, as a species, we have vastly improved, at least in first world countries. Obviously, there's parts of the world that still kind of are rampant with violence, but like medieval times, definitely parts of Africa, Middle East, like it's pretty commonplace to be like, if you have the urge to go kill someone or it's part of your daily life, like you might have to kill someone, that's very much present.
Right.
So that's more like this, like medieval times, like everyone kind of carried a sword. Yeah, if you had a problem with somebody, kind of just like killed them. So we are not just a murderous species anymore. Like there are pockets of the world, I would like think a good part of the world, where people aren't just rampantly like solving their problems through murder. And it's more of like a look back, right, through video games and media. Or the issue though, what people have is when they take these kind of more present day, like post 90 video games, these modern day situations that are rather scary. Now, in one of these games that we'll talk about, it was before its time, because it was before this was kind of commonplace in our society, in terms of like what happened in that video game.
Right. Yeah.
Which is,
let's get into
Postal.
All right, tell us about it.
Yeah. So Postal came out, I think, in 1998, late 90s, but essentially you are a postal man who goes on a killing spree, and throughout the game you are just murdering people, civilians. Like that's the whole goal of the game, is just to murder people, innocent people, unarmed people, all that jazz. Not too much in the way of hindering that, and like you are bound by the mechanics of the game to murder people. I think there's like 4 postals. There's one where people can do the peace runs, where it's like no shot, no one killed, and they can finish the game. But one of them, like, it's a requirement to murder people. Like it's the only way you progress. But really, kind of like the punch of it is like all the way at the end, which is now a non-playable scene, and they changed the graphics of it. The original one, you went to the end scene was you go to a schoolyard and you murder everything on it. So that was like the final breakdown, and then I believe you learn at that point that like this person's mentally ill, obviously, and they have lots of issues. So all the way at the end of the game, after everything else, there is that larger point story that kind of explains a little bit more and makes it a little less random and excessive. But the whole school thing like really took it too far with some people, and that was before we were kind of actively having school shootings and stuff like that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
definitely ahead of its time. And now,
Coincidence that came out and then all of a sudden, no, I'm just kidding.
it's all its fault. All Post's fault.
Yeah.
But
Someone do a quick background check on all the school shooters, see if they played Postal.
yeah,
No, it's
and
all
the
Doom. It was all
developers-
Doom back then.
Doom.
That's what they were. That's what they were playing.
Yeah, and the
Metallica and
developers,
Doom.
they claimed that and they're probably right. Like they're just trying to think of the most like unbelievable thing like they could put in the game.
Yeah.
And it just didn't age well because it becomes very much believable. But now when you play the game, the children, nothing happens to them. You're just kind of like, it's a cutscene and he's just shooting. Nothing like is happening anymore. So, and it plays out the same way, but much less imaginative for what it is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I remember hearing a lot about Postal when I was younger and hearing about how insanely violent and vicious it was for the time, especially for the time. Nothing had really. I mean, it wasn't probably until Grand Theft Auto 3 where we got that level of violence on that scale.
that
Again.
level of the thing with Grand Theft Auto is the freedom that
Right.
game is, because there's nothing narratively telling you to like murder civilians.
Right, not at all. Yeah.
But as a player, you can totally be like, you know what,
Yeah.
I got a quick like 20 minutes. I'm gonna kill some time.
Let's just rampage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've never played Postal. I've always been interested just to check it out to see what it's all about. But I do remember it being a very, very hot topic, especially like on like nightly news channels in the 90s as well, that people were like freaking out about this game. And yeah, I mean, it's the same thing as before. Like this game, yeah, probably goes a little bit too far, right? Especially if you look at it through the lens of the time that it came out, certainly went too far. I think this would be like a $2 game on Steam now. Nobody would really give two craps
Right.
about it. And I think they kind of ironed out that game a little bit. And I think it got a couple sequels, right?
There's
And
like
I
4
think-
Postals, and Hatred, I think, is the more modern evolution of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they kind of spiraled into pretty popular games the last
Mhm.
couple ones. I think they're real crazy. I might be
Yeah.
wrong, but I think that's like, I think those are the games where you can like use a cat as a silencer on your weapon and stuff. I could be wrong. I think it's Postal.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that's Postal.
Is it Postal? Yeah. Okay.
That the Hatred game you brought up is one that I had on my list just to like touch on, bring up. But like, yeah, the synopsis of that game, you pretty much play as a misanthropic mass killer who begins a genocide crusade.
Nice.
But
premise.
there's not really any like commentary behind it. I watched like, I don't know, few minute summary on that game, and the guy's like pretty much like, yeah, well, first off, like gameplay wise, the mechanics, it sucks. Like it's not fun to play. But he's like, if there was like a point, like this could be cool, but there just is no point
Yeah.
at all. So like, it's why? Like, why? You're just doing it to be shocking. But yeah. I think one that also needs to be touched on, obviously, is just below you, Nick, over there. And that's Manhunt. I remember playing this one, and
oh
I
my,
have a fun.
Mike, you've played this game? I'm shocked.
Yeah, I'm shocked because I haven't even played Manhunt.
I wasn't always a saint, guys.
Yeah.
And yes,
You
I did play
murderous
this
band
one.
person.
Was this like PlayStation 2? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's already gruesome. You're pretty much playing, how did BioCiv describe it in Discord here? You sneak up and kill people in a grotesque fashion to gain your freedom from a madman who is creating a snuff film. So
Yeah,
like
you're
right
literally
there, just
playing a
that's
snuff film. Yeah.
that's very disturbing. It's very brutal and graphic and gruesome. But there was a Wii version of this. I don't know if you guys knew this.
Oh, I didn't
No.
know that.
But this caught a lot of flack and became even more controversial because of the controls with the Wii. Like it's motion control. So you're
like,
it's a murder simulator.
yeah.
That's fantastic.
You're literally, yeah, simulating all the motions of the intense and brutal murders you're committing.
It's so funny because when you think of Nintendo, especially in that era and in eras earlier, like they had campaigns against one game, and I can't remember the name of it, but
Night Trap, I think.
It was a game that was for the Sega CD, I think.
And
I can't remember.
Used like real like live action.
Yes.
cutscenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I can't remember exactly the context behind it, but I think Nintendo was like throwing shade at Sega, saying that it would never be on a Nintendo console, and
But it
giving them
couldn't
crap.
anyways because
yeah, they didn't even have the technology to put it on there, so it was like they're throwing shade, and they're like typical Nintendo 10 years behind everybody else as far as technology goes. And I heard that I thought I heard that game was like not that bad too. Like
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I had to look.
But that was a big one that had like national attention because that came out in like maybe the mid 90s or something.
Yeah.
And like
2000s.
Politicians were talking about and all that stuff.
Yeah.
No,
exactly
not
what my
Manhunt.
politicians.
I'm talking about Night Trap.
Yeah.
And I think I read the senator that was really like pushing against Night Trap and like trying to get it banned and stuff, like was asked if he had ever played it or anything. He's like, no.
Yeah. Of course not.
But it must be banned. It's the most terrible game ever.
Yeah, like
and it's not even that bad. Like there's not
it's
like
not,
you're trying to prevent this like break-in, right? And there's not even really anything like graphic or because it's all like live action stuff. So what can they really do?
Well, that's like I like Chad's comment about Postal being like a $2 game on Steam, modern times. And when you say like these games, like some of these games that like they throw a fit about aren't that bad. If you open the hood like in Steam and like really dig into like the games that are out there, there is stuff that is really, really bad. Comparatively to what like gets national attention and like people are like, oh, it's ruining everything. Yeah, you go to the dark corners of Steam, like there's plenty more. So like you ban one of these, good job, I guess, but like there's probably free to play games on Steam that are way more disturbing.
Yes, I think that I could be misremembering this again, but I'm pretty sure that there is like a Columbine RPG that's called like Super Columbine Massacre or something like that. And it's literally
the name.
It's literally a Final Fantasy style turn-based.
What?
No.
How do you turn-based that?
It's turn-based, yeah.
Whoa.
So yeah,
RPG, so you pick up like your gear. I don't know. I don't want to get into it.
Yeah, there's way worse games out there than the stuff that we're probably even going to talk about tonight,
Oh, jeez.
Mike's like, oh no.
No, that's not good.
I know what I'm voting for Mike to stream next.
Yeah, right.
Got to be on the list. That will never make the list. I'm sorry. I'm just honestly take a little side note here. I'm about to just hang up all my streaming plans and stream Darkest Dungeon again because I watched.
Why don't you play the sequel?
Because I don't own
that. Makes more sense, doesn't it?
It's expensive.
Oh my gosh, bro! I've seen your house. You can't play this off anymore. I've seen your house. Okay, please.
That's why I can't afford full price games. I watched I'm like halfway through this hour-long lore video explaining all the lore in Darkest Dungeon, and oh man, it's so good.
Oh man.
Anyways, back to this. Chad, do you have any? That game is crazy. It's mentally disturbing and exhausting, but just not due to anything over the top other than just being insanely difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chad, did you have any specific examples?
Yeah,
of
I
any
mean,
games?
I did want to bring up, there's really been only one game that has ever made me be like, okay, that I've played personally, that has been like, okay, this maybe was a smidge, a little bit too far, and it's actually on our wallpaper here. It's Grand Theft Auto 5, and we know how much I love Grand Theft Auto 5. I think it's a fantastic game through and through, but there is a mission in the game, and I can't remember the name of the mission off the top of my head. By the book, I think it is. Where you legitimately are torturing a guy, and you have various different tools that you can use to torture this guy, and you see it all, and you do the torturing. It's like very, very graphic. And
Dick
that was
Cheney's
the
like got a hard
yeah.
on in the background.
And again, it's one of those things where I think thematically it works really well. You're doing it as Trevor, who's already the psychopath of the game. You know what I mean? And he's making a point by doing it as well. So that's the only thing that I've ever played where I was like, okay, maybe, but I finished it and moved on with my life, and didn't think I need to make political decisions because of it, which seems a little excessive.
You didn't want to go out and
you didn't
torture
write
No, I didn't. Yeah, I
local
haven't.
senator?
I've not tortured anyone in my life outside of that game. But yeah, that's the one, and that's a pretty modern one as well. I mean, Grand Theft Auto 5 came out in 2013, I think, right?
Yep.
And
so
15, and then 16, and
yeah,
17, and then 18, and then
25, 20, 28. Yeah, so that's really the only one from my knowledge of games that I've played. That's the only scene from a game that I've been like, oh, okay, this is a little far. Now, did I do some horrific crap in Grand Theft Auto 3 when I was a kid? Absolutely, I did. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I mimicked some stuff I probably shouldn't have been mimicking when I was that age, but outside of, and I didn't feel the way that torture scene made me feel, probably because I was a kid and I was just having fun. This is like, I'm like my mature brain watching this. I'm like, whew, because I think, I think the torture scenes in Zero Dark 30 are kind of difficult to watch, even though they claim that never happened. I think it's BS. I think we know that happened, but it's even a film. I don't know. There's just something about torture that I'm just squeamish on, I guess, is what it is.
Probably because it's like disgusting and brutal.
Yeah. It's just, yeah.
You don't have to explain yourself. I think it's a pretty normal reaction.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember playing that mission, and I don't know. That game's just really good at putting you in character, and it just made sense to me as Trevor. I'm like, this is what this psycho's about to do, and it's Trevor doing it. I just happen to have
be
to
controlling
hit the controls.
Like,
I wasn't offended by it. But yeah, that didn't really faze me, and that's why because I got that game the day it came out, and I think I was ahead of the curve on that before it kind of hit the waves, and people were like freaking out. I'm like, oh, I mean, I'm doing way more worse stuff, just like free roam in that game.
Yeah.
I don't see anyone getting, up in Congress, trying to, say how we need to protect hookers because there's a game out there that lets you pick them up and just brutally murder them afterwards.
Yeah.
So it's what about their rights and their safety? We're gonna have mass hooker murderers running the streets if this game has any merit to.
I mean, maybe Jack the Ripper played some Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
Who?
This is a terrible joke. We'll slip that.
Yeah, I think you really nailed it. I think Grand Theft Auto 5 does a fantastic job, maybe the best job of any game, of putting you in the specific characters, because you will find yourself doing more screwed up crap with Trevor than you would ever do with Michael, that you would ever do with Franklin. Like he's when you're playing as him, it's great the way they divided the identities up between those characters and made you literally play how you would imagine those characters would be in the game, So, I don't want to say the scene offended me. I don't think it offended me at all. It's very, very difficult to offend me. I don't know that I've ever been offended in my life, to be honest with you. So
I try to offend you all the time. It never works.
It never works. Yeah. I mean, it would take it's never happened. So I don't know what it would take. A great deal, because I've seen some really screwed up crap that hasn't offended me. So,
I want to talk about a moment in a game that affected me that probably is not really a moment anyone really considers to be effective in this way. And after I do
That
that, I
one
want to
time
know,
Mario. No,
yeah. After I do though, I want to know, Nick, if there was anything in any game that kind of like made you feel like gross or something after going through the scene. But mine is at the end of The Last of Us. Like I might have talked about this before, but when I'm saving Ellie from the doctors before they like, do whatever they're gonna do to get the cure. I was kind of like felt icky afterwards because I just went in there and blew the brains out of both the
Yeah.
doctors,
Yeah, I
grabbed
feel you
Ellie
on
and
that.
left.
sure.
Turns out, I think you can just grab her and leave. I don't think you have
Yeah.
to kill this. But I just go in there like a raging
Yeah.
monster, which is because of like it's because of the game. Like the game does such a good job of like making you have that connection with Ellie as Joel, or at least for me. Like I was really invested in that father-daughter relationship there. So I don't know. I was just like wrapped up in the emotions of the game and that part of the game. It's hitting the climax, and I'm just like trying to get Ellie out of there, and I'm just like go in there and blow these doctors'
Yeah.
heads off their shoulder.
Yeah.
And then when I found out I didn't have to do that, I was like, wow, what kind of person am I?
Right.
What?
Yeah.
So you're saying there's a chance that that game like moved you in such a way it could like affect you outside of the game in like the real world?
I don't know. I mean, if
Yeah, because
any of
he
my
murdered a bunch of
daughters,
doctors. He's gonna go
if they
murder
had to go
doctors now.
under, I don't know. Oh, Biosip coming in here. He says, no, you have to kill them. I tried to spare the doctors on my playthrough.
Yeah, I thought that was the case.
Hmm.
I've talked
Either
about
way,
this
I still
before.
feel
Yeah.
like a monster for just murdering
Yeah.
doctors who are trying to like save humanity.
Right. Yeah, I think that.
That's what you didn't like.
Yeah, that's it. That it's the whole thematic of the story going on there because I say it all the time. Joel is literally the worst character, and including Trevor. He's the worst, most despicable character I've ever played in a video game. In the moment, you certainly don't feel that when you're playing it. You feel like you're the hero. But when you look back on it and realize that he essentially screwed the entirety of humanity, what remains, because he has daughter issues. You know what I mean? Like he colossally, he's easily the most despicable character that I've ever played in a video game. But you don't get that until you get to the end of the game, and then maybe a week or two after, where you kind of reflect on like, wow, we did some heinous shit.
It's like it's a tricky position, like not to just change this entire episode into a dissection of The Last of Us, but excuse me, it's a tricky
pretty horrific
situation
game,
that
too.
they put you in.
Yeah.
Because like I don't know, like if I was in that situation with it's a little different because like Ellie is not his actual daughter, but I mean
Right.
like they grow so close on that journey. But like I don't know if I could do that with one of my kids, obviously. Like I can't sacrifice my child, as selfish as that sounds. But like then if you look at the whole picture, it's like could save humanity.
Right. Yeah,
It's
you
like,
could literally end this nightmare
I'm glad
world
that
you're
I
living in.
don't ever have to consider that. But like,
Yeah, well, never
man,
say never.
that position they put you in, man.
Yeah.
It's real icky. Biosib says it's a shame to hear you say that, Chad, but it's absolutely true. He screwed humanity because of its personal issues.
It's exactly what it is. And they do a really good job of making you feel like you're making the right decision in the time.
I know, Siv. I know it's not his daughter. But I'm saying in my position, I don't. If I had to do that to an actual child of mine, even if it was just a child that's not mine, that's still a really difficult decision to like be like, yeah, just kill that kid.
I mean, that's like the conclusion I drew there. That was like that came weeks after playing the game. Like in the moment at the end, you're like feeling like the hero. You know what I mean? They set it up so good to make
immediately
you feel like,
as the credits rolled, I was the most emotionally exhausted I've ever been in my life.
Dude, it is an emotionally exhausting game for sure. And the Last of Us 2 is equally as emotionally exhausting. But I think that Yeah, it was just like maybe a week later, I was like, man, he is such a piece of shit for that decision. You know what I mean? Not only are there probably minute amount of doctors left in this world, you literally just murder them all because your daughter got killed at the beginning of the outbreak, and you feel a close attachment to this girl because you were literally taking her to the doctors because she has the cure. You know, it's just like when you put it all together. But like, yeah, in the moment, they do such a good job of making you feel like he's making the right decision.
Yeah. Civ says, I sacrifice all. If it was mine, I kill all humanity. Yeah, that's exactly what I do too. But afterwards, I would be like, man,
damn. Now I gotta raise this kid in this horrific world that I could have stopped.
Yeah, it's quite the predicament.
Yeah, I'm with Bio. Screw it.
Yeah.
I'll be like, this
love
ain't
that
my job to fix this problem. Like, someone else has to figure this crap out. No.
Yeah.
No.
We're just gonna go hang out over here though. So like, you guys just stay away.
Yeah.
Big old not
Yeah.
my job.
What was? Yeah, they don't pay me enough for this. But do you have any moments, Nick, that made you like feel something other than good after playing in a game?
I'm not sure. Like, I
Do you
watched
have
Cozy.
emotions?
I don't really have emotions. I watched Cozy Contagion play like all of Manhunt. I think I got to play some missions, but he was so enthralled with that game when we were like teenagers. Like he basically played it straight, like however many hours it takes to beat it. Like
Yeah.
that was another all nighter. And I think I played a couple missions, but mostly I just watched him play it. It was like the OG Twitch, like just watch your friend play it.
Yeah.
At their house.
The OG Twitch.
Like, nah, you keep playing. That's good. You're doing a good job. You're really into this. I mean, there's probably, I mean, I haven't played that game in a decade or more. But like that game definitely has its moments where it's like really makes you think like, oh, like even the simple ones like, yeah, plastic bag over this person's head, just gonna suffocate them all the way. And
all the way.
It's not you know, that game, and I think that's where people had issue is it was basically a murder simulator, not with the Wii controls, of course. That would be the better way to experience that game.
That's great. I didn't know that.
They need to make is it
Hey,
can you still do that? And they should make it 2-player where you need someone to
you need someone to
2-player
I mean,
on the
you
Wii.
are making a snuff film, right? So it's
yeah,
just
there you
co-op.
go.
You just need the victim.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or the guy filming you, one or the other.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I really wanted to play Manhunt when I was younger because I think it came out a couple years after Grand Theft Auto 3, and like I was obsessed with Grand Theft Auto 3, and it was another Rockstar game. But I don't know, it just never really looked that good to me. I'm sure if you go back and play it now, it's probably not. You know, probably doesn't.
He's streaming it right
now.
Yeah,
I was
like
watching
this
a little
literal second, but like
I was
believe
watching.
It has a really good like decent cover system, but it's like the same like Rockstar cover system that they were kind of developing at the time that came from the Grand Theft Auto ones. And it has cool mechanics in terms of like light, noise, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean it set out to do a certain purpose. They didn't have to polish all the corners of it. Like
right.
The highlights were the the murder parts of that game.
Early 2000s Rockstar, man, was just they were trying to get at the politicians, weren't they? They did
were trying to make a name.
Yeah, they were, but they did make when Grand Theft Auto 3 came out. Grand Theft Auto 3 came out very shortly after 9/11, and they actually Liberty City is a fictional New York City, right?
Yep.
And they actually went in and changed a bunch of stuff, made the cop cars look different. If you guys remember the plane from Grand Theft Auto 3, the Dodo, they removed the wings from it. That's why that plane is impossible to fly. It literally had wings originally, but they removed it because of 9/11. So they at least made some good decisions in their early 2000s. You know?
It's taken a long you can't even land 9/11 jokes still. Like that one's just those are tough ones to land with certain crowds, most crowds. So it makes sense that even Rockstar would have to, in the 2000s especially, have to like heed and heel to some popular suggestions like, yeah, you should maybe change some of that. Just be a little tasteful with it.
Right.
Yeah, especially if there's like, how would you feel, Chad, if there was this like firefighters you could mow down in that game? And
I think there is.
there is,
And there is in Grand Theft Auto 5 as well. A lot of them.
Do they have sweet mustaches?
They almost certainly do have sweet mustaches. Yes, that seems to be the image that most people think of when they think of a firefighter. And it's funny because November is coming up, and we have like No Shave November, but it's Movember, so it's mustache. You just grow a mustache. It's like everybody is growing their mustache right now.
Yep.
And I had one. I had one for a while, but I don't know if I can bring it back. It's
we doing Movember? I'll do it. Let's do it.
I don't know. I always get crap from everybody because they say I look like a young Ron Jeremy with a mustache. And unfortunately, it's very, very true. Like I've had several people that are like several firefighters that don't know each other have told me. My uncle has told me the same thing, and they're right. I mean, it's not a good look right now, you know. So
not a good look.
All right, so I'm not gonna shave from now until the end of November and maybe December 1st, or the first podcast of December. You'll just have Mustache Mike.
Mustache Mike.
Are you serious?
I'll shave it all off except the stash. Maybe.
Wow.
If we get 2 more tier 4 patrons by December 1st.
You'll stash it for all of Christmas.
I'll stash it. Well, I don't know about all of Christmas. Civ says it's an error, but I still make super distasteful 9/11 jokes to this day.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, sounds right on point for Civ.
Yeah, I can get down some good jokes in that department, but not many can.
So
it's an acquired taste.
It is.
I was trying to land them in like 2006. They weren't sticking real well.
No, I would imagine not.
Before we hit the answer the boys, I had 2 games I wanted to bring up.
Yes.
One that I had only like really heard of and then kind of like fell off for me. And then the other is a new game just came out that I did like a deep dive on today. Watched a couple videos explaining the lore and the story of. But the first game, Agony. This came out a couple years ago, PS4, Xbox One, PC. It's surprisingly on the Switch as well. But I'll just read the description here off of its wiki page. A dark fantasy survival horror game that puts players into the perspective of a tormented soul within the depths of hell, devoid of any memories whatsoever about its past. The special ability to control people on their path and possess weak-minded demons gives players the necessary measures to survive in the extreme conditions they are in. And it's famous, or infamous, I should say, for being one of only 4 games to receive the adults-only tag by the ESRB, which I thought was interesting because the other 3 are The Punisher.
The 2005 Punisher?
Yeah.
That was another one that I was going to bring up. Yeah, that game's brutal.
Is it? Is it just like just extreme violence or like
yes. Okay. Yes, over the top. I think it had like an interrogation system, another torture thing that you could torture people with.
It was heavy on the mechanics.
Brutal.
Yeah,
like the player-based mechanics that they could just do.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, The Punisher, Manhunt 2, and Hatred, which we had brought up.
Dude, that's it was then Manhunt 2 got that because they made all the murder scenes just static.
Really?
Yeah, that was the big letdown on 2 is because
wait, you said Manhunt 2 got that adult rating?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting.
At least according to this wiki article. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure Manhunt 2 is where like when you go to like do the murder, you just get like static like on the camera. You go to like the perspective of the dude talking to you through the cameras. You don't actually see the murder get done.
Interesting.
Delayed reaction 1, I guess.
But yes, it got this rating due to violence and other extreme graphic content, including but not limited to gay and lesbian sex scenes and genital physics. because that's a thing apparently in video games.
Like it was on the label. Like it said those things on the label.
Genital
going by
physics.
the
I might
the
need to
wiki
buy that case
stuff.
if that is on there on the label.
I
Adults
hope that
only.
it says that on
AO genital. Like that's all you
Yeah.
need right
genital
there.
physics.
It's so good.
It ended up being re-rated to mature after they toned down the violence, which also led the PEGI rating to go to 18. They planned to do an adults only unrated patch for PC, but it was dropped due to legal issues.
I was gonna
Mod.
say, you would feel like a game like that would sell better with an adult rating because A, it's super rare.
Yeah.
B, there's a lot of adults that play video games.
Yeah, I
So
think why they changed it, according to another thing I read, or maybe it was like a little snippet on one of the videos I watched today in preparation, is the adult only rating like halts distribution in certain countries. So it's like a money thing.
yeah, that's
Like
probably true. Yeah.
like yeah, it might sell well here maybe, but you also might only be able to release it in like 4 countries as opposed to like however many. But yeah,
Manhunt 1 got banned in a ton of places. That was a big deal with that.
But I remember hearing about this game when it was being crowdfunded because this was a Kickstarter thing. So that's another reason that they it seemed promising. I use air quotes on promising, but like that they could get away with all this stuff because they weren't behind a big studio or a big publisher. It was all crowdfunded. So
yeah, that backfired because the reviews are horrendous on this game.
Yeah.
There's one that gave it a 6 out of 20. I've never even seen a rating scale of 20 in my life.
Yeah, who rates the 20?
Yeah, I've never even heard of it, but I just thought it was funny that they gave it a 6 out of 20, like so random. Yeah, it doesn't really get above a 4 out of 10 on all the other websites. So,
but yeah, I wonder, like, with a game like that, like, what's the point? What are you trying to say as the developer? What are you trying to say story wise? What are you trying to make people think, or are you just shock value? Or are you just trying to lure them in with those genital physics?
Physics. You laugh.
Stuff must get cut off.
Yeah, that has to
there's
be
something brutal there with the physics part. Makes me really think about that.
Right, it's not just swinging; it has to get cut off. Yeah,
not just swinging,
and it like fall like all kind like it's an object. That, like,
it's an object.
It's in the game.
It's got its own physics. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Civ clarifies for Manhunt 2. He said for the kill moments, it would flash the screen with static and red filters.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's still shocking that Manhunt 2 got that rating and not the first one.
Yeah. Speaking of genitals,
being safe.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Speaking of genitals, do you guys remember when Red Dead Redemption 2 came out and there was like that huge thing about the balls on the horses would like shrink in cold weather? Do you remember that? It was like, dude, everybody was reporting on it. Like it was.
Those are the genital physics I can get behind.
That's right.
That's realistic.
And they do. If you go play the game, they certainly do. They get cold when you go up north, and they.
Hey man, that's just real life.
Yep. We took a dark turn, didn't we?
Yeah. How do we?
Not the dark turn we were expecting to take, but.
AO.
Yeah. The other game though, recently that just came out is called Scorn, which is a game also Civ is tampering, fiddling around with stream wise. This game is interesting because not knowing much about Agony, right? I didn't do a real deep dive into Agony, but it seems like they're trying to say something with Scorn, story-wise, and the way that they approach the story is very interesting. There's no dialogue, there's no cutscenes, so you're just like playing, and I think this could just be another whole other episode on narrative choices for games, but it's just an interesting stance to take or road to take narrative wise, because you're not really confirming things to the player narratively because there's no like cutscenes like setting things in stone, like
Yeah.
your name is so and so, or like this actually really definitely happened because I saw it happen between NPCs in a cutscene. So everything that people get out of this game is just by observation of the environment and the gameplay and their own thoughts. So it's just a lot of theorizing, which I think is really cool because that's kind of how art should be, right?
Yeah.
Open to interpretation. But the game's disgusting though. Like it's very, very, very like gross and gruesome, and I've watched 2 or 3 videos, and they all kind of lean towards this being commentary on birth and reproduction and uh all this stuff. It's just like this
Handmaid's Tale?
weird mesh of like um shoot, I wish Ray from work was here, Nick, because he used to talk about this all the time, but like the
Summon Ray.
mesh of flesh and machinery. Like he had a term for it. Do you remember him going on about that, about like
Yeah, I don't.
us becoming machines? But I mean, that's what this game is. Maybe Ray is like super hyped about Scorn, but yeah, it's super interesting. I don't
Yeah, I
think
think
I'll
biopunk is probably what you're going after.
biopunk.
Yeah.
Yes, he had some. If you only knew Ray, he was a very special guy.
Is he the Persona guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had
I
a
already like
very
him.
he had a great term for it, and he would use it all the time. But yeah. Anyways, it's just I think this is a game that pushes the boundaries. Is visually like gross, and probably gameplay wise makes you feel gross. But
Oh, this just came out.
yeah, like
Oh.
very recently,
October 14th.
like last
literally.
week.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in a way, intentionally to tell their story, right?
Yeah.
And to get their thoughts across, which having not played it, only watching other people's summaries of the lore and what they got out of the game, it's very interesting. And I don't know, do either of you guys know anything about this game at all?
No, I saw that Bio was streaming it on Facebook, but yeah, I thought it was an older game, to be honest with you, because he's been on like a older game ride here with the past couple of games he's been streaming.
Mhm.
I didn't realize it just came out, but yeah, I mean, it sounds super interesting, and I do like games that leave stuff up to interpretation. I wish it was something that more games did. I think like the Metal Gear Solid series would really benefit from some of the stuff being left open to interpretation instead of having like 40-minute cutscenes, right? But
Yeah.
but yeah, there are definitely some games that are really good. I think Alien Isolation doesn't give you a whole heck of a lot as well. And I think that's very effective for a horror game specifically because you don't really
Right.
know what the hell's going on and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I definitely have to check this out. It's the first I'm hearing of it, was seeing it on Bio's thing, but I thought I was under the impression it was like from the 90s, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'll read a little synopsis of the story from the Scorn Wikipedia page.
Sounds like
The
a
story
band,
takes
too.
place between two silent protagonists. The first awakens and attempts to cross a wasteland, heading towards a tower seen in the distance before falling down a massive crevasse. Before the second emerges from an egg-like structure. The player escapes a massive egg chamber before entering a transportation hub that has been infested with parasitic entities. These entities have networked together to prevent the majority of mechanisms from functioning. During this time, the protagonist is attacked by a seemingly infested parasite. You explore this temple. It's just a lot of like machine body, like actual body part amalgamations, and like birthing these weird babies that you then like grind up into blood that you have to like feed part of this thing. It's
That's
out
intense.
there, but
It's
listening to
scary.
these people like break down what they think the commentary is great. Like the stuff that they're getting out of this game is very interesting. I think like the point it's trying to prove is kind of dumb. Maybe if they're right, but it's still interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
I'm glad, Civ, that you're still here because I want to know like what you think. If you could expand upon this a little more. He just says super foul.
I love it.
I mean, that reminds me, like Dante's Inferno. Not that like anything's particularly like it's gross. Like there's parts to that game if you ever played it. Very simple but very effective. Like things that are just like horrific to see, things that are horrific to fight. Like that was probably like maybe the most like dang, this is like really intense because
Yeah.
I whatever format like that is, like God of War, where it's like it's like a
hack and
button
slash.
masher hack and slash. Like yeah, the like the gluttony boss plus the like the children, the baby, the unborn fetuses, children, like that stuff's intense.
Yeah.
So you describing score and like kind of made me remember, I'm like, well, that was pretty intense on my brain. I was like, man, I will remember that forever because there less damage.
Yeah, there was like a mission in The Witcher 3 that had to do with a fetus that died and they buried it and it turned into a monster. And it's one of the most, and it might even be a side mission, to be honest.
It's in the show.
Is it in the show? Oh man.
It's an episode.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because that's like that was like probably the defining moment of that game for me. I think that mission's fantastic, and it's really really long.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my wife like fell asleep during that episode and like woke up like during the fight. And I was like, yeah. She's like, what? Or she was on her phone, like looked up. She's like, what is happening? Like,
yeah, okay, just go back to the phone, please. Oh man, but yeah, were there any things that popped into your mind while I was going through those two before we hit the answer the boys stuff? Are we ready to dive into what our Discord community brought?
Well, before we go there, what's the answer here? Like, can games go too far? And like, what's the action? Like, if they do go too far, like, how's this handled? Should people still continue to like creep up these games that do go wild and people have clear issues with, and then like should they be censored or should they just be left alone?
I'm not a big fan of censoring much of anything. I know a lot of Japanese stuff gets censored when it comes over here for whatever reason.
Oh, it's the other way around.
No, I think it's
you're thinking of like China, like China censors a lot.
I know a lot of anime get censored before they come over here, and I know that a lot of dialogue has been taken out of like Doki Doki Literature Club and Persona, maybe before it comes over here. And that might just be, it could be a million different things. But I do think games can go too far. I don't know that I've ever seen anything that is like really like over the top. We need to do something about this. We need to get politicians involved. Like I've never seen anything like that in my life.
Video games.
Yeah, there's nothing that I've ever seen. I'm sure there's, like we said earlier, there's probably some heinous shit on the 99-cent store of Steam, and even PlayStation is getting some really weird and odd games now. They're like just approving everything on there. So is there something out there that probably goes too far? Yes. Do the politicians and parents and stuff need to worry about it? No. Just maybe watch what your kids are playing if you're that concerned about it. Maybe don't buy a game called Columbine Massacre RPG. Probably not the game you want your kid playing. Just saying, just saying.
Yeah. I don't think, well, before I get into that, Civ replied to my question. He said, talking about Scorn, it's like that, nothing really to fight, just a puzzle game, but it's all fleshy. Anything is just husks and tortured, mangled bodies. Seriously nasty. Definitely check it out. It should only take 6 hours if you don't suck at puzzles. And then he says, when I was 6, Mortal Kombat came out on Genesis, and you could cut out the blood code. You could put in the blood code for fatalities. That's right. They
I
took
remember
the blood
that
out of Mortal Kombat. But
blood.
listen, Can media go too far? I'm not just gonna lump games in because I think media as a whole can go too far.
Art.
Yes, art, media, it can go too far. There are always lines that can be crossed. And I kind of explained my viewpoint on it before. Like, if you're gonna push the boundary or go over the line, right? Like, have a point. Like, try to say something with it. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you pushing the boundary? Like, what are you trying to get across? If it's just shock value, I think it's stupid. I don't like it. I'm also not a fan of censoring anything. I mean, hey, if you want to say something, regardless of how stupid it is or how disgusting it is, like, whatever, just don't listen if you're not into it, or like, don't play the game if you think it's over the top. Like, don't support it, don't buy it, like,
Right.
don't go watch the movie, don't go, watch the show, whatever.
Don't buy it. Then there's GTA 5. Bought infinitely the most out of anything ever.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that's really a game that
Right.
crosses a line, or that's like just like the Serbian film of games. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't. I'm not a fan of censoring anything. So
Yeah,
my
I'm not
answer to
either.
that would be no. But my answer to can art go too far? Yes, I think anything can go too far. But like, if it
So whether or
goes
not
too,
you enjoy or get anything out of
yeah,
that
yeah,
going
yeah.
too far.
If there's a point,
Yeah.
then it's okay. But like, if you're just doing it because you're sick and twisted and like just want to pet some weird part of your like ego or like psyche
That's going
by
to
doing,
Yeah.
well,
me
it
too.
could go somewhere. But like,
like
if
tearing apart.
that's all you're trying to get out of it, then like maybe you need to like seek help and stop. But like, I'm not gonna say people shouldn't create this. I mean, unless you're like literally hurting or killing people, like, obviously there is a line where things should be forced to be stopped. But
right. Yeah.
like, if you're not like literally making snuff films or like whatever. But yeah. So Civ says media absolutely can go too far. And he also says, Mike, you're absolutely right. Finally, somebody agrees with me. Actually, you guys were shaking your heads, so I assume you agree with me too.
Yeah, I agree
But
with you
Civ
as well.
agrees. What do you think, Nick?
No, I think this is a pretty good consensus. I'll probably like peel it back just a little bit more and say that it should go too far. Like that's kind of the point of art. Is that if you don't want it, we have to like that's how we find the lines in the sand and then draw them, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't really know. So I don't think the metrics of like if it's a if it's a terrible game, right, or a terrible movie or any of that, like it's not going to be popular and it's not going to perforate society like people claim it will. Did it cross the line? Did it do something for like art in that space? Yeah. And if that line is like, oh, that's just like not cool, that will be the consensus and nothing will kind of come of it. Someone has crossed that line, marked, noted, like no bueno, like no one's gonna repeat it. And that's obviously why like it's not like we have a popular median like on Twitch where people are streaming snuff film games and like all that kind of stuff. Like there are people that play them and stream them, bio. But like it's not like we have like League of Legend tournaments like on it and things like that. So I feel like they naturally fall where they need to in society because as a whole, I think like Chad was saying earlier, society isn't just like this cesspool of just disgusting people. I think people are generally okay. Are they perfect? Heck no. But as a whole, we're functioning.
Right.
Yeah. And I agree with you. Like, art, the point of art should be to move and to challenge.
Right.
So yeah, I totally
I mean,
agree.
I kind of agree with the Modern Warfare change, like just making that like a watchable sequence, right? I think that was a good example of where a very popular game that basically everyone played. I don't know very many people who have not played that campaign. Made a change, and except Mike, he doesn't play game. Like, I don't
That's
know.
wild. Dude, that campaign's fantastic. Easily the best Call of Duty campaign by a mile.
But like that,
The
no
Red
one's
Dawn.
yeah. But like
Red
that one,
Dawn
no one's
notes and that.
complaining. No one's
Yeah.
complaining that they changed that scene.
Right.
And
No, not at all.
and they made the necessary change, and the line was crossed, and it was a fair open-ended consensus that was like, yeah, change it. No big deal. No one's like on the other side, like, we demand to have our
Yeah.
that
Not
scene
my
back.
Call of Duty.
Not my
Call
yeah.
of Duty. So that's I think that's a really good example where like just naturally it corrected itself. Like there was a line, very popular
Mhm.
game, went too far, they fixed it. It was fine. So
Speaking of games that always cross the line, Civ says Civ is a League of Legends. I don't even know what you're trying to say, bro, but League of Legends always crosses the line for me. But yet I
makes
still
you cross the
crawl
line.
back. Guys, it's not good. I've
You're
been
back
dabbling.
in it. Oh no.
I've been dabbling.
Oh no.
But yeah, let's hit up the answer the boys. We got some replies in here. We'll start off with
ADB.
Civ here. He says, "What, you feel like Postal is a horror game?" Which we've already gone over. He says, "I can see it being horrific because it's so insensitive and promotes disgusting acts of violence, but I don't know about a horror game in the traditional sense. That being said, it makes sense why you would have GTA 5 with the torture scene. So with that, I'll answer the boys." And he does so. Excuse me. He says, "I've never personally felt bad doing or witnessing terrible things in games. I've learned to separate myself from whatever is happening. I have the hiccups. However, I learned that several of the scenes in these games have been very controversial for one reason or another. Modern Warfare 2, no Russian. You're undercover with a group of Russian mercs and you massacre innocent people at an airport. Manhunt, you sneak up and kill people in grotesque fashion to gain your freedom from a madman creating a snuff film, which he is currently streaming. State of emergency. You're running around causing destruction in a mall while riots and looting is occurring. You could use people's severed heads as weapons.
Yep.
Hatred. You're fed up with everything and just want to kill everyone. This game was banned on Steam for a long time because you can graphically execute cops.
Nice.
I don't know how graphically you can do anything in a like top-down twin stick shooter, but
Valid. I feel like it's more graphic in Grand Theft Auto.
And speaking of Grand Theft Auto and top down, people still lost their minds over the top down Grand Theft Autos. Like that
Right,
was terrible because there's little blood pixels that hit the pavement
Yeah.
when you ran over like a pixel person.
Yeah.
Rip.
oh man. He then says Postal 2. The first few things you learn in this game are how to use live cats as a silencer, pee on people to make them fight you or vomit. And suicide bombers are everywhere spouting fake Arabic. Splatterhouse. It was an arcade game in the early 90s as well as a console game. You played as Jason Voorhees lookalike, smashing demons with a baseball bat against the back walls and the arcade screen. And then, of course, Saw. They let you play as a victim like a Saw movie. So they put you in increasingly compromising situations that get gory. And I almost read that as gooey, and both are equally disgusting.
Same meaning.
And then Dad the Cap, he messaged me and said I don't have to read this because it doesn't really fit the theme, but I'm gonna read it anyways because you answer the boys. Whoa, Nick, you're all blurry.
I know. I don't know why.
Your camera's like, is there a ghost behind you? It's like focusing on. Ooh. Anyways, he says, I haven't played a horror game that really crossed any lines, but I will say the horror games I enjoyed the most were Dead Space and Visage. I love Dead Space for the gore and creatures, and Visage just messes with your head. I love the thrill of it, even if it makes me have to sleep with the light on at night. Yeah, Dead Space, I think, is another one that's like real gross and like real disturbing. Have either of you guys played that?
Nope.
I started the first one and
Yeah.
then realized it's old enough to wait for the remake.
Yeah,
And
that's
you
where
were
I'm at.
wise, because about like 4 or 5 months after that conversation of like, you have to play Dead Space, like play it, they're like, we're making a remaster.
Yeah.
Civ says no, and Hatred, the executions got close up. Okay, that makes more sense.
Hate.
Yeah, Dead Space does a lot of really good things, and there's a scene in that game that makes me cringe every time I think about it, because it's pretty gross. So looking forward to you guys playing that in like all of its HD remake glory, because it does look amazing.
Bring it.
But yeah, that's all we got for Answer the Boys. So anything you guys want to get off your chest before we wrap up here?
No, I
Awesome.
think we're good. Good chat.
Heck yeah.
No
that's fun.
no fireside chat, but
Yeah,
it works.
we'll only bust out the fire for special occasions.
Holidays.
So I don't know. Maybe with next week being the finale of Spooktober, we'll have another fireside chat. Well, maybe we'll break out the Yule log in December. You never know. Yeah. Make sure you guys tune in Monday night, 9:00 over here on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. They will be breaking down the finale, House of Dragon.
Oh, so nervous.
Very nervous.
Ooh, that means I need to go watch episode 9 so I can be nervous as well.
And join us.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Other than that, we got the Chosen Companion series happening. Pre-recorded stuff comes out on Tuesdays, audio version, and Wednesdays our YouTube video goes up. Other than that, Chad, haven't seen you streaming lately. You gonna get back to Ghostwire, or what's the dealio?
Yeah. Eventually, I had some training I had to do at work this week, so I didn't really have time to get on and stream. But yes, I do need to finish it because I'm really enjoying that game.
Yep. So be on the lookout for that on our YouTube, Showboys Gaming. I stream over on Twitch. I'm going through Control right now, and then on the weekends I've been co-streaming Resident Evil 5 with BioCiv, and that's been a lot of fun. I love that game. It's so much fun to play with somebody. Other than that, subscribe, go check out our Patreon, join our Discord. We do have D&D, Dungeons & Dragons, on Sunday night, 8:00 over on Twitch. That's been a blast too, so make sure you come hang out with us. Apparently Joe says things are going to get crazy, and we need to be on our game, so come hang out with us. Until next time, we'll see you Monday. Have a wonderful night. Run. I need to go watch Andor.
Yeah, you do.
You need to watch
Greatest
Star
Star Wars
Trek
stuff
by the look of
ever.
it.
Ouch. Big burn.